Sorry if this video is at like a awkward angle and like some of the stuff you guys might find like I don't really understand why I put it in there, but everything like in the end adds up to a big thing. So yeah, and I don't talk about cancer as much, but like yeah. And I'm reading off something, so if it looks like I'm staring at something, it's that. So yeah. So I was 13 years old, and my dad had been having breathing problems and had always been being sick. And he went to the doctor to figure out what was wrong. And I'll never forget the moment when we were driving home from the store, and he got a call from the doctors. His test results had come in. My dad answered the phone, and he had this voice that went from all happy to where he sounded scared. I've never heard him sound like that before. He handed my mom the phone, and in her voice sounded like she was going to cry. I had this feeling where I knew something was wrong, so I asked what was wrong, and I got absolutely no reply. The rest of the car ride home was in complete and utter silence. We walked in the door, and my dad looked at me, his eyes glossy like he was about to cry or had been crying. The words "I have lung cancer" flew right out of his mouth. I just sat there for a moment and didn't know how to react. In the back of my mind, I knew that I needed to stay calm, so I wouldn't freak out about it. We went over to my Nana's house because they wanted to break the news to her on the phone. They didn't want to break the news on her phone, so we went to see her. We got to her house. My dad told her she may want to sit down, and he broke the news to her, and she broke. Knowing that her son was just diagnosed with cancer killed her, I could tell, because her husband had died from cancer not long ago, like 13 years ago before that. Months went by, and my dad was still the same person I had known all my life. Energetic, loving life, acting as if nothing was wrong. He seemed to be all okay with the fact he had cancer, and I never understood how somebody who had been diagnosed with cancer could just be so happy. Like, I don't even know. It wasn't until he got really sick, everything went downhill. He had been having problems breathing, so he got checked out. They told him he had pneumonia and blood clots, and gave him medicine to fix it, and they also gave him an oxygen tank to help him breathe. He was doing a lot better, but that, in reality, wasn't the case. Since he thought he was doing better, he got the okay to go to the Dells. Yet again, he was still energetic as he could be. It wasn't until the end of the trip everything went wrong. His legs started swelling, and we couldn't figure out why. But Dad could barely walk anymore. He didn't think anything of it. He just thought it was something that would go away in time. We came back from our trip because I was starting my first day of high school the next day. August 13th, 2012. I got out of school, and my mom told me that my dad had been rushed to the emergency room. That day, he had almost died. He had a breathing attack and almost lost his life. When we got to the hospital, we were told that he had a blood clot due to his right lung, which was his good lung that cancer wasn't in. Doctors decided that they were going to start draining his left lung, which had the cancer in, to help him breathe a little better. Them draining the left lung had been helping a lot. He started doing a different blood thinner, and it was helping. He also had something put in so the blood clots couldn't move anywhere else or spread like they did the first time. After all this happened, my dad would still act as if he was okay and he was healthy, and like nothing had ever happened, and I was still very confused. A few months back, I had found a lump in my neck. I went in and got it checked out, and they said it was all over. Doctors hoped it was just an infection, but just to my surprise, after I had several biopsies done, on August 23rd, 2012, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. I was in shock, but I wasn't scared. All my appointments were set up for me to get my port in and my first chemo treatment. Chemo was going very good, and I didn't get sick very much, but sadly I started losing my hair. And that probably was what hurt me the most, because that's like a girl's prized possession. Not long after I started chemo, they said my dad was well enough and could go home. He didn't come home to my house, but he went to my grandma's house. During that time, we could all see my dad was getting better. After 3 months, he was so happy because he could finally go back to church. But the first day he went back, people were asking questions, and one of the questions happened to be, "How much longer do you have?" My heart sank when the phrase 6 months came out of his mouth. I was never aware of that and never told about that. So I just kept telling myself, he's got more than that because he can get through it. He's gotten through so much more, and it will be longer. Sometime in October, my dad was rushed back to the emergency room. He was there because he was having breathing troubles, and because our insurance company are complete idiots, that was the only way he could get a CT scan. A few days later, his results came back. My mom came to take me out of school, and in that moment, I knew there was something wrong. The ride to the hospital was all silence. Tears flowing out of my eyes. we got to the hospital and my dad seemed happy. And I remember being confused because I knew something was wrong. When the doctors walked through the door and asked my dad, "Are you ready to break the news?" the most heartbreaking news came out of his mouth. The cancer was spreading, the chemo wasn't working. They had done everything they could to help him, but nothing was going to help him anymore. They put him on hospice care, and through the time, I spent every waking moment from the time I went to sleep with my dad. Well, that's if I ever got sleep. I was getting so worn out from the chemo and being kept up all night to help my dad. I think the hardest part of all of this was watching my own father die, and there's absolutely nothing I can do. We all knew that when the cancer spread to his brain, that would be it. My sister and brother came to visit before he passed. This is the second time I've ever met them. So most of the time, I didn't get to spend time with them because I was with them. And at this time, my dad was starting to go through the process of passing. The last day my sister was there, we all knew something was wrong because he went into a coma and hadn't woken up since 4. We all think he knew his time was coming because he kept telling us he didn't want to die. I'll still never forget the last smile I gave him. Showed him a picture of my sister, my brother, and I, and how we were united. He smiled and told me he loved me and told me how I need to stay strong even if he wasn't there. Even if he wasn't there, he'd always be in my heart. I fell back asleep, and little did I know that was the last smile, let alone the last time my dad would ever talk again, and the last time I'd ever see a smile from him. The next morning, my sister had just left. My mom came upstairs to wake us up and had said something bad had happened, but they wouldn't tell my mom until she got there. I knew something was up. The whole car ride there, I just kept thinking what could have happened. It wasn't until I got there. Everyone was gathered outside crying, and my aunt walked up to me and said, "He's gone." I remember I went into shock, and I thought it was a lie, and I had to go look for myself. It wasn't until I walked in the room he was laying in. No movement, no breathing from him. I was all kept together until the moment my cousin Brianna walked in and told me everything's going to be okay. I broke down crying. That day, I had chemo. The only great part about that day was the day I found out my cancer was basically gone. Somehow I knew it was the works of my dad. The hardest part of my father's death was probably the funeral. I was the only one who wouldn't go up to the casket to say my goodbye. And man, to this day do I hate myself for it. Guess I'll never have the closure I should get from him. After that, I pretty much shut everybody out and turned into a person with the worst anger problems ever. I was just numb from everything that had happened. I didn't know who I was anymore. I felt like I lost myself, and the day I lost myself was the day I lost my dad was the day I lost myself. I felt as if there was no point without my dad, but I stayed strong because I knew that's what he wanted for me. Because I was going to make him proud one day. February 28th, 2013, I had my last chemo treatment. After a long 6 months of treatment, losing my hair, and being sick, it was finally all over. I finally had beaten cancer. To this day, not a day goes by that I don't think about my dad and how much I love and miss him. He truly was a great man and inspiration to many. He's my hero and the reason I stay strong. He made me the person I am today. Without him, I don't know where I would have been. The people who say different about him, you obviously don't know the man I knew. To conclude, just remember, when you're going through things you don't think you can get through, you gotta put a smile on your face and stay strong. Because wanna know what? You can get through the struggles you face every day. You're given the struggles you face for a reason, whether it's to teach you a lesson or for you to become a stronger person. Just remember, don't take things for granted, especially people who you love. And also, don't take your life for granted. You'll never know when your last could be. I'd also like to thank all my friends and family who didn't give up on me when I went through all this. No matter how hard I was to put up with, you guys all stayed and loved me the same. This person I should thank the most is my mom. She's honestly so strong, and I don't give her enough credit for it and all she's went through and done for me. I love her more than words could ever describe. Thanks for watching. I'm sorry this video is meaningless to you, but yeah. So, that's my story. Thanks for watching.